One thing I didn't know before all this started was that this is what changing the world looks like. Looking back, I can remember clearly the first time I ever came to Wenatchee. It was apple blossom, and I was coming through with a girlfriend on our way to Spokane. My folks just recently moved to Waterville, where we had planned to stop. Rolling into Wenatchee, the hills were plush green, the sky was bright blue, scores of apple trees were blossoming, the cliffs and the palisades over the river, which to me is one of the best rivers on the planet. The forest was right there, snow-capped mountains in the distance. I said, wow, if I ever leave Yakima, this is where I'm coming. And that's exactly what happened. I visited Waterville a few more times. I fell deeper in love with the area before finally moving here for good with my oldest daughter, Taylor, who just turned 4. My first job was as a bouncer at Grizzly's Lounge, and my second was as a bartender at Niemeyer's there in Waterville. Soon I started pursuing an education. I had to get my GED first. The day I walked into Wenatchee Valley College, a woman named Christina Stepper was at the counter that day. I was ready to turn around, but Christina's kindness sucked me in like a magnet. She introduced me to Dr. Sharon Martin, who seemed to think highly of me, and my course was set. I gave the valedictorian speech. I got choked up when I thanked my mentors for helping me achieve the second highest score in Chelan and Douglas counties that year. I graduated with honors in 2000. I'd worked my way up to the Regional Communications Officer for Phi Theta Kappa, which is the honor society for 2-year colleges. That led to my first plane rides, me going to Canada, a foreign country, and also me being able to take Taylor to Disney World in Orlando for a week. I worried about what effects all the allegations might have on my kids. It turns out my 2 youngest had the toughest time with the conditions at home and the changes to routine, being subjected to certain pressures. But Callista was in high school, and I worried more about her name and reputation and what effects the allegations against her family might have on her social life. She graduated with honors, seemingly unfazed, school-wise, by any of it, which I worried about every day. Moving to Wenatchee and going back to school are among the best choices I've made to date. The Wenatchee Valley College environment elevated me. It gave me a previously unknown confidence. It allowed me to reinvent myself and like who I was becoming. I met my daughter Callista's mom in college, and then I started working at Fred Meyer. We separated. And I fought for custody. I didn't win, and the whole ordeal hardened me. At Fred Meyer, I met my future wife. I got married for the first time. I was gifted with 2 stepdaughters who I love and adore and I can't spend time with, as well as my 3rd daughter, Dakota, and my son, Xander. I don't want there to be any doubt as to my love for my wife. I absolutely adored her. And with this new career, I was making more money than ever before. And in my home with my family, I felt like I had achieved the American dream. I had made it. In our marriage, there was no violence. There was no name-calling, no bullying. My wife said she wanted to divorce based on our arguing. And I don't think we argued any more than anybody else. That wasn't the reason. And given the first 6 years, the state of our relationship, to me, it was unthinkable. And now it's inexplicable that we would fall so fast and end the way we did. On September 9th, it all fell apart. I hacked her account, tracked her locations on Google, presented her with evidence of her infidelity. I told her as a result I wasn't leaving the home, that she was. And she says, "Oh yeah? Well, you raped me." 2 hours later, she would report being choked. When showing no marks and told that there would be no arrest, she then told the police I had raped her 6 days prior. And then the cops happened, and my ordeal began. A man should simply be able to use the truth to prove his innocence. That makes sense. That's where they take you in. Apparently we have an escaped convict. Oh, look at this. Door opening. I feel you, flag. When you don't like the way that people are playing, change your playgrounds. This is a moral objection to the way that you practice law. There were laws in place to protect me, just like there were laws in place to protect her. And you ignored them. It did not matter to you. That's immoral. This is 100 times in dozens of different ways. People would either say or not so many terms, uncertain terms, make me feel as if, you know, how could I expect to win? And yet I'm looking at it as like, I cannot see myself fail. I can't see myself failing. And then the response is, well, this may take years and go on forever and take a toll on your life, and in the end it may not result in any sort of financial benefit. Money has never been a motivator for me. As I said from the beginning, I want justice. I can live with that. I can feel it. And then the other question is, how will I know when I've won? What will a win look like? And my response to that is, I can't wait to see a beautiful rainbow over Wenatchee. So to make this real for you and kind of drive it home, I'm going to share with you some of the more significant things that I lost. And I'm going to talk about how that affected who I am. See that guy right there? He just turned around and looked at me. He could be a spy for the cops. See that car right there? It's my favorite car. It's red Mazda. Not a dent in it. There could be a beautiful girl in there waiting for me to walk by so she could strike up a conversation with me. We might get to know each other. And before you know, I'll be back on jail on a false allegation set up by the cops. Those are real thoughts that went through my head. Now, I think you could call that paranoia. That guy is coming back. But at the same time, with the threats, the very credible threats of being falsely accused of another crime, or maybe even being murdered, is it paranoia, or are these just calculations as to what could happen next? Been that way for a while, and at this point, I think I'm wise to them. But yeah, could be right. May not be though. Don't look now, but that guy has come to sit down within earshot of where I'm sitting. I don't know who that guy is. I've seen him before. But yeah, he walked all the way down there, and now he's come back and he's sitting there, and I'm playing my thing nice to be heard at that distance. So you guys aren't going to believe this, but that guy that was sitting over there, he all of a sudden something just started beeping like freaking crazy. Beep, 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 beep. It sounded like a teletyper from like World War II or whatever. And he got up and walked to his car, and he couldn't shut it off. He still can't shut it off. I can still hear it. He's got it muffled. But wouldn't that be funny if he was a cop and he was trying to be like low-key about everything? But if I am paranoid, that shit ain't my fault. The job goes, The kind of work that I want to do, which is more social work, requires background checks that go way back. And they also go and look for any signs of like domestic violence, protection orders, that kind of thing. Okay, so I have a bunch of domestic violence trash from my marriages and 3 custody battles. And if you don't believe that false allegations come from custody battles, then you haven't been paying attention to what now. I refuse to take any work outside of what I want to do. And trust me, I'm getting plenty of splashback, I don't know what you would call it, from family and stuff. They're like, it's really hard. And I don't want to just work any job. I mean, what about me and my satisfaction? I'm the one who's homeless, you know? Fuck, I can tolerate that rather than working a job that I can't stand. Trust me. Knowing that I leave a lot of projects unfinished, and I wanted to maintain focus on this thing. I didn't want one vision to cost me the other vision, and then I had to prioritize. And this fight for justice, literally it came down to having a job or having justice. One of those two things was going to dominate all my time. And it didn't mean I wasn't going to look for a job, but there was really nothing I could do about going homeless. I didn't have any money to put down a down payment on a new place, and my lease was coming to an end. So yeah, I had time prepared for this, and you know, it's all in. So I have my car. I don't think of myself as homeless. I'm quite comfortable in there, but yeah, killing job interviews and not getting a job, but I have another one tomorrow. So trust me, a guy in my situation who's susceptible to allegations can't afford to have any sort of anger control problems, regardless of where they stem. What we have here are 2 scandalous women who have used the domestic violence laws to their favor. They've been given restraining orders left and right. I don't know if they've ever had one denied. And so now I have this paper trail. It doesn't matter that none of them bear fruit. They're there. And it has really caused havoc with my mindset. And believe it or not, when you hear this shit over and over, and on top of, you know, the way I grew up, you start to believe all these things are true, and you just can't see it. And I'm certain there are plenty of things about me that I can't. And don't think for a minute that my public defender and the prosecution didn't seize that opportunity to get inside my head. Easily rattled ADD. I'm kind of big. I'm an excitable guy. I kind of sound real tough. I'm loud, so I'm easy pickings. If anybody wants to go in and say something about me, hell, all I got to do is speak for myself in court, and I look bad. I mean, but it's who I am. So I'm not defending it. It's who I am. But who I am has nothing to do with abuse or neglect or harm in any sort of way. I mean, that is my dying testimony. I mean, I am a father. I want what is best for my kids. I made mistakes when I was younger. So did you. And so are you. So, what of it? You know, it's who I am. It's who I am right now and who I've been. And I feel like I've been denied my true potential. I've had my coaching opportunities taken from me strictly because of these allegations. That's devastating to me. That's my dream job. Okay? No money there either. As time went by and I became more and more isolated in my apartment, I decided that I had to do something to stop the ruminating thoughts and to, get me out of my despair. So I started doing meditative things, started to exercise, started to draw, things like that. I put a lot of effort into learning to pitch underhand because one of my dreams has been to be a coach. I want to be a paid coach on some level. That dream's now gone because of these false allegations. However, I can still pitch, and I'd love to teach anybody who wants to learn. But yeah, it's just another effect of these false allegations. I passed. I went and took a dealer's course, and passed the course. Second in the class, was offered a job. Couldn't get a state license because there was an allegation against me. So it's fucked up. And remember, I'm an innocent man. But why? Change up. That's a slider. I'm gonna change it. That's one. Right on the top. The first thing that you lose is your trust in people. I mean, when the police, the authorities, the people who are supposed to protect you don't do their job, and in fact turn the blame on you, and you face the punishment, and unjustly so. I mean, how am I supposed to be able to relax to get to know a person if in the back of my mind I'm thinking the best person in the world that I could find and married betrayed me, and everybody saw it coming except for me? So what does that say about my ability to choose good people? So now the idea of me falling madly in love with somebody is a far-fetched. I mean, why would I want to put somebody that I love through the meat grinder with me and being a head case and untrusting and lacking all those things you need to have a beautiful. So besides my ability to love and my belief in people, the goodness of people and that sort of thing, I lost my sense of self-worth. Without working, without being able to get a good job, having these allegations hanging over my head affected my life massively. I couldn't get my state license because there was an allegation. It didn't matter if it hadn't been proven or anything like that. So my ambitions took a dive. Really, I was like, why would I want, what do I want to bring all this stuff back when they can just take it? They can just take it with a false allegation. There's nothing you can do about it. It takes you, they take you, and they destroy you. And they do it in the name of justice, while they are committing an injustice. Cannot stay calm about the counsel for defense, who are telling you that pleading guilty to a crime you didn't commit is a win-win situation. It's a win for the prosecution and a win for the defense attorney, but not for me. So I think the loss of my control of my emotions was basically the start of a certain level of loss of sanity. I just could not make sense of the world. I had already lost my home and my kids, and I hadn't done anything wrong, and I was a good guy, and I'd overcome, I spent the last 30 years overcoming my first 20 years. Graduated college. I've been volunteering in my community. I've raised beautiful children who are graduating high school and are very good and kind people, and none of that mattered. And you don't know how devastating that is to a person, even a person with a checkered past, especially somebody who might have a record or something. I mean, you are not equal to the worst thing you've done.
and the only crime I had committed that was worth even talking about was 30 years old. And they said they didn't hold that against me. They said it was irrelevant, but they still treated me like I was a violent person. And I'm sure they were including that and just adding it to what my wife said. And yeah, it was for sure. Found a new identity, and of course it's a little contentious, but my heart is in the right place, and I am still a good person to good people. So I am alarmed at what I found, and I have to do something about it, or else, I mean, I'm to blame in an indirect sort of way. And thus I wasn't able to control my feelings. And this doesn't do you any good in a courtroom, especially when you have a judge who's really not being very considerate for you, for your story. It's all about, hey, let's shelter this victim and make sure she's not going through any more trauma. That's such a fucking lie. That's such bullshit. In my case, there was no trauma. It was all manufactured, and they just refused to look at it because it fucks up the narrative of the female victim. So obviously I lost my health. I lost 30 pounds, or excuse me, I went from 250 to my current weight of 195, and I lost my first 30 pounds in the unhealthy way through stress, and gradually I started to kind of gather myself a little bit and started exercising and that sort of thing, and gradually started to improve. After the case was over, after the court case, the legal case got dropped, the civil case, basically she was awarded everything. I took home all. I now understand how our legal system in this valley works. The court's all powerful, and they have caused devastation to anybody who goes through them on the wrong end. But what cause have I to tangle with the authorities? What cause do I have to just come out and expose myself and tell people that I was called a rapist and all this uncomfortable shit? Basically, it required me to expose myself to everybody just to get the recognition and the help that I needed and deserved. Why would I want to bring this up and make it public and get at odds with the cops? And it's because I'm right, they're wrong. They have committed criminal acts. Everybody knows that cops commit criminal acts. They can do that shit on camera and they'll find it justified. Well, I want to hear them find this justified. It's justified that I didn't do an investigation. But today, as you look at me, I'm probably in the best shape I've been in, perhaps in my whole adult life. And that is a testimony to my will. I have beautiful children that I am still raising, who I still have, great plans for and dreams for, and just can't wait to share the future with them. So my health, I'm already an old dad, so my health is important for me to stick around with my kids. And I'll tell you that this did nothing for my health. I mean, it was absolutely devastating, and I just can't impress that upon you. So I just want to point out a couple of things that, from the onset, there were people who heard and passed immediate judgment, and then for 3 years, have not made eye contact with me. And these were people who talked to me on a regular basis, who were actually happy to see me. That played a lot of mind games on me, and I can't really tell you, in detail or effect how 3 years of that felt. But one thing I don't want people to be able to ignore is the strength that I have shown throughout all of this. Even at my weakest point, the strength I've shown in all this is something that I really want to point out, and I want my children to identify with, even if they were a little bit disappointed in the route I chose or the way I ended up, homeless and all. You know, no victim impact statement would be complete without bringing up the people who were there to support you. And I am going to, there were some really good people that stayed with me throughout this, family and friends included. But a definite thank you and lots of love goes out to my best friend who doesn't know he's my best friend, but that doesn't matter. It's not how best friends work. But Attorney Tim Hall out of Yakima, Washington. Let me know that I used to know Tim, and we went to school and stuff. I think there was a mutual respect for one another. You know, he told me stories later on in life about our juvenile years that I maybe didn't remember, but he kind of pointed out why he had respect for me, and which is cool because you get to hear those stories. But my respect for him is like tenfold because of what that man did for me and my life. He did nothing less than save my life, and I want to make sure that I take a little bit of careful time to acknowledge just some of the things he did and what. So to set the scene for you, I'm in jail. Just got there. I'm a frazzled mess, but nothing compared to what I'm going to be. I don't have any information, so I think it was the second day where I was just trying to come up with some sort of plan. I wasn't able to call out. I did not waste my first two calls. Both my first two calls were to my daughter. Letting her know, one, that I couldn't come and pick her up after school, but also letting her know exactly what happened, why I was there, and that sort of thing. I gave her instructions on what to do, and it was complicated, and she wasn't writing it down. And I'll be damned if she didn't get it 100% within the amount of time. It just played out like clockwork. Okay, so she gets the message to other adults in the family, and they get to work for me. I was asking my sister to try on Saturday. I came up with the idea, hey, I know an attorney that might be able to get information for me because I was really information poor. So she tried all weekend to get a hold of him, left messages like crazy and everything. Well, he got those messages, though he didn't respond. First thing Monday morning, when I go in, or Tuesday morning when I go in to see my bail attorney, Jeremy Ford, Jeremy's already received an email from Tim. So it was great, yeah, but he didn't read the damn thing. And I'm thinking, I'm taking for granted that I'm going to be released on my OR because I'm a good guy, right? Well, none of that shit happened. He didn't read it, and I ended up having to bail out on Tuesday, far more frazzled than I was on that Saturday. I spent the first 2 days in the hole, and then I went into the sex offender tank where I was close to cracking. And so instead of Jeremy Ford going in front of the judge with the information that Tim shared, stating that my wife at the time, stating that there was no sort of violence in there, he doesn't do anything with that information, and so I remain in jail and have to bail out. Tim stays in the wings, and I kind of bounce things off of him and talk to him. Really, he consoles me a lot, and kind of gives me. He does what some. Tim played a more significant role than maybe even he thought, because what he was doing was actually giving me the truth, the lowdown, and sharing me. A lot of the things jived with what I was thinking with regards to what was going on. And so I had, even though I was falling apart, I had a lot of self-assurance in the fact that I was right and we could get the truth out. However, I was being represented by Sunshine Pollock, and so, you know. So you need to keep me coming. I got to come right now then, right? Okay. All right, well, I'll be there in a little bit then, okay? I got to drive across town. All right, I love you. Love you. So fast forward to me firing Sunshine, which was really, I mean, to see her stand there with her pants down. Oh, my God. And, but anyway, once Tim took over, I mean, I was completely comforted. Everything started to change for me. For the better. I was just in way better hands. That's why having that public defender, I know for a fact, adds to the stress and intensity that somebody might normally feel, because you give me an attorney I know has their heart in it, and everything changed for me. It's a psychological change, which leads to an emotional change. So you can't fucking tell me that having a public defender is good enough, because most of the time it is not even. So you can't even compare the two. But like I said, Tim came in. He was so comforting. His voice was always so level. He always listened to everything I said, even if I repeated shit, talked in circles. He still seemed to understand. And when I needed somebody to be able to click in thought with me, and to know where I'm going with this, and to listen to, and a means of how we can defend me, because I've been thinking about this all this time. He was all about that, 100%, and he used my words in his documentation, and of course, made him more impactful a lot of times. But he said all the right things, and probably could have saved me weeks of writing. But yeah, man, it was just he was a powerful ally, and I just cannot say enough about him with regards to the things that he did for me. The emotional support, even after it, he celebrated with me. He confided in me after the case was over that he stayed up worrying at night. I never saw the man look stressed out at one time. He was always so freaking cool. And it was great to watch that guy walk up there where you got all these guys, arms full of files and carts full of files, and really, like, they don't even know where they're at, half asleep and shit. And then my attorney walks up there with one piece of paper, and that's what we end up doing. I love that. This is my girl, Amy. This is my thick and thin. She was there from the beginning. She is a true warrior queen, and I love her. She has been one of my pillars of strength throughout this whole damn thing. And people like that, I mean, gotta love them.
Just coming, bet you see me shaking from the club back to my place. Wow, this money on me. I can't take it. Stones are crystal clear.
That was my daughter Callista, and she is a hero in this story. But there are other heroes, and one such hero is my stepfather. He told me when I was younger that he would never, ever bail me out of jail. And I never had a reason to not believe him. He is my word is my bond kind of guy. And yet he did bail me out. And here I stood accused of one of the worst offenses imaginable. I'm spiraling fast, and who would come to my rescue but the man who perhaps most impressed upon me the plethora of good reasons why I shouldn't lie. He lied to me. He bailed me out of jail. He took me into his home and watched over me while gaping wounds healed for over a year. He posted my bail, and 8 months later he retained Tim Hall, who continues to be there for me. I am forever grateful to those men. My sister Tawny was there to answer her brother's call for help. Tawny stood by me, watched over me. She listened, she spoke, she advised me to seek help, as did my oldest brother, who from the get-go led me to ask vital questions about the way my case was being handled. I owe thanks to my fellow coach and co-worker at one point, Lonnie Walls, and to his wife Tanya. They were some of the first people I called and who talked to me and heard what I had to say and supported me. So, love to them. These people made a difference to me in every way, including testifying in our custody trial and defending my name, as did my friend of 20 years, Clark Morris, and a friend for almost as long, Tiffany Frodsham, who spoke to my presence in the community. You were all ultra important to me. To the people who hugged me and patted my back and listened and showed faith and love for the guy they knew, you all saved me too. If you could pluck the eyes out of my head, you'd see Sage in the courtroom, sitting arms draped around my abuser, glaring at me as she cries dramatically for a judge. A judge who, just as easily as he dismissed the actions of the professional bullies in the room, provided my abuser with a protection order so that somebody might show up at one of my favorite haunts and have things end up with me going to jail, set up by Chelan County once again. That isn't just a possibility. That is their plan. That is what is happening currently. To put a cap on this, I'm the only victim in this whole story. The courts choose to continue to view me as violent and guilty of abuse when nothing could be further from the truth. I categorically deny ever having abused my wife, and I stand against abuse of all sorts of manners. Where once I considered surrendering everything, I now choose to give my everything to this cause, to end the practice of taking revenue in trade for the disadvantaged yet innocent men who fall prey to these poachers and by way of silver bullet. When I, and probably the villains in this story, thought you were breaking me, you were making me. And if having nothing to lose was a power, I'd almost be a superhero. My abuser was actually found guilty of contempt, but as the judge alluded to, I'm probably going to get obliterated by the coming volley. I've had interactions with the police, which were nothing but professional. Officer Wilson was helpful to me. I have no issues with the police force as a whole. I understand that individual choices are at issue here. And with the lawsuit pending, I certainly have the energy and attention I need to move forward. I can comfortably say that this is far from over. I'm still scared. This is what changing the world looks like. I'm trying not to quit.